everyone! Welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you another new type of video. This doesn't really have to do with makeup, but it has to do with something that I'm very, I would say, passionate about, and I feel a lot of people struggle with this, and that is how to stay organized and be successful in school. And I feel like in order to do that, you have to be organized. You have to have a game plan. I did a video like this about 2 years ago on this channel when I was a sophomore in college. And now that I've graduated, I think it would be kind of nice to look back and reflect and give you my top 10 tips on how to be a successful student, how to stay organized, and how to really make the best situation out of your education. So before I start, I want to just make a quick disclaimer. As you can probably tell, I'm wearing the same makeup and same clothing as in the last video, and that's just because, you know, when you have time to film, you have time to film. So regardless of that, I think my information is still important and valid, so let's get started. So I just have my list of tips in this booklet. That's, you know, just as an aside, that's one really big tip, is just to make lists and write things down, because you know, having things out in front of you to look at is really helpful. So tip number 1, and probably my most important tip, is to get an assignment notebook. And this is basically, you know, a daily planner that you get, which typically has like a weekly view and a monthly view, where you write down all of your assignments. And you can go so far as to color code it by subject, or you can make little check boxes next to all your assignments. It's kind of satisfying to check that off and know that you're done. But the reason why it's really important is just, you know when things are due, you know how much you have to do, either day by day in the weekly section, or what I love to do was I would use the monthly view and I would just write down, you know, this is due in 2 weeks, and this is due in 3 weeks, and I have, you know, my midterms here. And it just really helps you to prioritize and think about how long you have to get something done. Tip number 2, which again is a very important tip, is get yourself some binders and some folders. This is just one of the old binders that we had lying around the house. Basically, I learned this tip from my tutor in 6th grade, and it helped me through college, it helped me through high school, it even helped me through middle school. What she had me start doing was she had me separate my subjects into 2 or 3 1 to 3 inch binders, depending on how many we're going to fit in here. And so then what you do is you choose a folder for each of your main subjects. So this one could have been math, this one could have been geography or language or anything. And what you do is anytime that you get loose papers, you put them inside the folder, and then any other papers or notes that you have go behind this folder. And again, you could color code so that your notes and your folders match up. But basically what this does is it allows you to keep all your notes and your papers organized, and you don't lose anything. So then at the end of the semester or the end of the year, you can go back and you actually have everything. And they're sleek and small enough that you can fit them in. You can fit 2, even possibly 3 in your backpack. Tip number 3 kind of goes along with that, which is to keep your papers and your tests and everything so that you can refer to it at the end of the semester. Pretty much every quarter I would go through each of my binders, I would take everything out, I would go through it, I would say, okay, do I still need this for the end of the semester? You know, are they actual papers or tests? Are they notes that are valuable, or were they just quick worksheets that I could get rid of? Then what I would do is I had a drawer in my house where I would keep all of those papers, so then at the end of the semester I could go through and go and refer to them to study for finals. My 4th tip is Quizlet. Quizlet is basically an online flashcard service website where you can go, and if you have any classes that are more concept or vocabulary based, you can go and you can make virtual flashcards. And you know, you might be saying, why do I need to do this online? For one thing, you can have multiple sets of, you know, cards stored on there. But the great thing about Quizlet is that you can run through your set of terms, and not only will it quiz you with a multiple choice test of several random answers plus the right answer. But if you go through the whole list of flashcards and say you missed 3 out of 11, it will go back and take those last 3 and it will go and quiz you again. So not only does it doesn't have you just stop with the ones that you get right and the ones that you get wrong, it keeps quizzing you, so then you actually start to really learn the terms. Tip number 5, study for a week before the test. And you might be saying, ugh, a week, like that, 7 days, like that's ridiculous. But no, hear me out. What you're gonna do is take your notes and separate them into 3 sections. On the first night, you're gonna study the first third. The next night, the second third. And the third night, the third third. Then, on the fourth night, you're gonna take your notes and separate them into 2 halves. So the fourth night, you study the first half, and then the 5th night you study the second half, and then the last night you study all of it. And what this basically does is it breaks it down into chunks, which makes it, first of all, easier to remember just smaller things in pieces. But then as you go back that second and third and final time, you start revisiting the old things that you had studied a couple of days ago. So you're more able to recall it during the actual test. So, tip number 6, and I again know that most people are not going to want to hear this, but start your assignments the day that you get them. Now, in high school, in most cases, you kind of have to do that, but I guess this more applies for when you're in college, when you typically have a class every other day and you have a break in between. And even though you have that break, it's really important just to start the day that you get it. I mean, say you have a paper that's due in 2 weeks. It's better to start on that first day that you get it and, make yourself a quick outline. You don't have to do very much, but just start and get the ideas percolating. And that'll really help. My 7th tip is don't buy, rent. And this, I guess, more applies for college students than high school students, but renting my books was the smartest thing that I did. I mean, I still have friends who are trying to sell their books 4 years later and are having no luck. And also, you might say, oh, well, I can sell them back to the bookstore. Believe me, you don't get anything back. One really good place that I found for renting books was campusbookrentals.com. This place always had the lowest prices, you could choose your own due date, and on top of it, if you ended up finding out that you wanted to keep the book, you could actually buy it afterwards. So I would definitely say check that website out. I know that there's also Chegg that people like to use. I know Amazon also rents books, but definitely look into renting any books that you possibly can before you think of buying them. Tip number 8 is know yourself and know your habits. If you know it takes you 3 hours to take notes, set aside 3 hours. If you know it takes you 2 hours to read 100 pages, give yourself that extra time. Give yourself a day in the library just to sit down and do what you need to do. If you know that listening is your strong suit instead of writing your notes down, see if you can record your class. But you definitely should check with the professor or the teacher beforehand. It's all about preparation. Tip number 9, take a class in something that you don't necessarily think you have an interest in. You may surprise yourself. I know that I had no interest in programming, but I thought, you know what, I have somewhat of an interest in computers, so let's try it out. And it ended up being an easy class for me. Some people may say, oh, well, I hate chemistry. Take a class, take an easy class in it, see how you do. If you go in there for the first week and you really don't like it, you can always drop the class. No harm, no fail. And my last tip is get up at the same time every day. If it's possible, plan your schedule, plan your classes so that they all start roughly at the same time. Try as much as you can to get up on the weekends at the same time. I know it's really hard, especially in college, but your body will thank you for it. You won't be as tired in the morning, you won't have dark circles. It's really important, and it also kind of sets you up for when you have to go to an actual job and you need to wake up at the right time, because as easy as it was in college to possibly, skip a class here and there, you can't do that at a job. So there are my 10 tips for being a successful student. I hope that these help you guys out, and I really hope that you can take something away from this video. Comment down below if you've tried any of these tips or if any of them end up helping you. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!